Hey everyone, and welcome to the Gloves Are Off podcast. Here is your host, Mark Rizzoli.
Hey everyone, welcome to Gloves Are Off podcast. This is Mark Rizzoli. Down goes 5756. Big victory for the Old Bridge parents on Tuesday the 20th. Old Bridge BOE voted to repeal 5756. It was an interesting meeting. It was a meeting that saw a Pastor John, a black conservative who represents Turning Point USA, verbally abused and even ejected from the meeting. I mean, clearly his announcement that he would be attending the meeting triggered the radical left. He showed up. Listen, he came out strong. I mean, he said what he had to say. He then wanted to read from the Bible. That's when board vice president Jen D'Antono stated that she was offended by the pastor, which I find interesting because I don't know how 5756 doesn't offend her as a parent, or Bill Murphy and his radical Democrats who want to uh, mutilate children with their surgeries and do so many other things as far as targeting parents. So then we had the board president and the board attorney use separation of church and state as a reason to eject the pastor. It doesn't apply there. I think the board needs to get a new attorney. He clearly doesn't understand the law. I mean, just because you're at a board meeting, you don't lose your freedom of speech. What happened to the pastor there was disgraceful. And then they're going to put the poor Old Bridge police in the middle of this like they were bouncers. And kudos to the cops. I mean, they did a tremendous job. They treated the pastor fairly and professionally. Unlike the radicals who were heckling the pastor when he tried to speak, calling him all kinds of names. I don't know how much was really, I was there, so I don't know how much was heard on the telecast, but it was a disgrace. And let's face it, we all know if the pastor was an anti-Israel Democrat wearing his BLM paraphernalia, yelling from the river to the sea, he would have been celebrated and not ejected. This was clearly predetermined. He was going to get tossed well before the meeting even started. Okay. And everybody knows that. Everybody was there knows that. Everybody who was there saw it, heard it. They had an ambush waiting for him, and they executed it. Okay, this is the same Old Bridge Board of Ed that sanctioned and participated in a BLM protest that began on the BOE property. Okay, and they invited activists from outside Old Bridge to participate in it. They now criticize the concerned parents who were doing the very same thing. The hypocrisy is just unbelievable. Okay, the supporters of 5756 didn't have a problem with Garden State Equality and Rutgers operatives in that room, and they were in that room. But the pastor and the concerned parents now, and members of the BOE who voted to repeal it, are now on the receiving end of a relentless social media attack, which is the equivalent of a modern day lynching. Okay, you have all these keyboard cowards attacking the board members. I mean, one was even that she's a bad parent. How are you a bad parent when you're defending your children? People need to answer for that. And that's a fact. So it's great to be joined by a panel of Old Bridge parents. We have Brooke, we have Gene, and we have Carl, who've been on the front lines. I know, when we had the extended school closures, we had probably the first protest in New Jersey outside of the NJEA office, where that scumbag Andrew Lewis has his office at.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, Andrew Lewis was trying to get people ejected because we all know the NJEA, they're a bunch of groomers. And he's like, he has to get to Trenton to the NJE office so he can genuflect to his hero, Spiller, the head scumbag of the NJEA.
Yep.
So let me start off with you, Carl. I mean, what is your thoughts on 5756?
Well, 5756. So I'm probably, to be honest with you, a little more moderate than a lot of some of the parents that were there that night. I wasn't there physically; I was watching live, but I know there's a lot of the parents from the Calvary private school come and they voice their opinions and things like that, which is great. I'm a little bit more of where I really don't care about the trans stuff as much. Like, you be you, whatever.
Right.
But I'm more upset about the hiding things from parents. That's what gets me. Like, I want to know what's going on in my kid's life. whether they're going through that or not. And I think I could say that probably 98% of the parents would be supportive in helping them out in this transition. I don't think, because they're making it, when they come up there and they speak and they talk about how, these kids are in danger, they're not in as much danger as you say. Are there cases where, parents are going to abuse them? Absolutely. And that's where the police gets involved. It's not teachers' job to do that. They're not psychologists, they're not psychiatrists. Let them do it.
Well, and my response to that is, um, when they had the 57, 56 meeting in the cafeteria where it wasn't recorded, you had staff come up, right, and make allegations that what you just said, the abuse when the child says, "Oh, Johnny wants to become a girl," they claim that being, child abuse thrown out into the streets. Well, then you know what? You need to produce the data to substantiate those claims. I mean, I'm tired of hearing about overage systemic racism. We have children being abused. We have LGBTQ
Where's
kids,
the data?
kids. Right. Where is the evidence to substantiate that? How many times have you called DIFUS? How many times you called the Overage Police? Is this stuff documented?
Yeah.
But as we saw the other evening, those same teachers who spoke in the cafeteria, nowhere to be found when they're on camera. Right? They said all those things off camera. So that's a major problem. So Gina, what is your opinion on 5756? And I can't wait to hear this.
Honestly, I definitely agree big time with Carl. And I hate to say it, but at the same time, it's why are we elevating a small minority and then in the same notion pushing down cisgender children? Because, okay, a girl goes into the bathroom, a biological girl, right? Now her rights are being harmed and her safety comes into play because now you have a wannabe girl basically coming into the bathroom. And now who knows what really is going to happen because she can be seriously hurt in that bathroom. And someone has to bring up the whole HIB reports and bullying and stuff, because I'm pretty sure that those reports have been increased. So they could say, like the liberal left can say all they want about, oh, this has been policy, this has been in place for 10 years. Okay, but bullying reports have increased. So how good of a job is this policy really doing? And not to mention, I hate to bring it up again, but I feel like a lot of people need to be reminded about how what we put these kids through during COVID and the school closures and the mental health that these kids have endured during that time. What's being done to fix that? Number one. And number two, now you want to play with this whole, oh, you're a boy, you're a girl, but you're really, biologically something different when they're already hurting, I just, insane.
Brooke, what do you think about 5756?
I'm kind of with both of them, but as far as being transgender or however you identify, that's your business and that's your right. I mean, we live in the best country in the world, and you can love whoever you want and do what you want. But there are, as far as this goes, I agree. It becomes a gray area, and this is a hard topic for me to talk about publicly because either way, you're going to be wrong, I guess, whether you're on one side or the other. And I do want to be sensitive to someone that doesn't feel themselves in their own body and, need to have certain mental health needs addressed. But why wouldn't a parent have the right to be involved in that? If something was going wrong, especially if somebody is having an identity crisis internally, I mean, all of us go through that anyhow, growing up as adolescents and hitting puberty and stuff. But if somebody's going through that mentally, internally, they should not be alone in that. And the biggest advocate or the biggest go-to person should be their parent. And if I knew something was going on with my kid and I couldn't figure it out, and I'm going to therapy with them, or, I'm trying to get through to them, and I can't because they think I'm going to judge them or be ashamed. You know, I would be devastated to find out that I'm the last person to know that at school, you know, my daughter is really called by some other name on, you know, by teachers, by her classmates. And I also don't understand that whole point about being safe at school. Because in my experience, my daughter was bullied her whole freshman year, and she went in a downward spiral into a point of therapy where I had to have her in really serious treatment. The school did nothing. I couldn't even tell you how many HIB reports I had to make. And you know what? I was the bad guy. I got the attitude from the superintendent. So I don't even understand that whole stance as far as safety in the school. And let's keep them safe by not telling their own parents what's going on with their mental health. So that's one component of it as far as that part. But then to Gina's point, exactly, you know, of course I want to be sensitive to these children, but who's to say that Johnny isn't just a promiscuous, curious boy, and he decides on Tuesday he's Jenny and goes into the girls' room or goes into the locker room. I mean, girls already have a hard enough time, you know, being in front of other girls, getting changed for gym class. We're very, you know, modest creatures. You know, the last thing I would want is anybody outside of, you know, that comfort zone to be in there. And so again, I don't want to be insensitive to this topic because these are human beings and there's people's children, but you have to think about everybody involved. And that's what infuriated me about Jay Slade, is because he at least spoke about something in the unrecorded meeting, you know, as far as maybe having, you know, a unisex bathroom, a transgender, you know, bathroom, unisex locker room, something of that.
Like a compromise.
A compromise, right? Because if you're going to school and you're saying your name is somebody else, then you can go in that bathroom, right? It doesn't matter, you know, as far as you don't have to be embarrassed to go in the unisex bathroom because everybody at school knows, right? You just don't want your parent to know for some reason. So I was really disappointed in him. But this seems to be his new thing where he, you know, was one certain way in order to get voted in. And he's become, you never know what side he's on. It just depends on, I guess, who's his buddy of the week on the Board of Ed. Right. And, you know, then he's going to sway whatever way, because he did suggest a compromise even with sports too, because that can be obviously very challenging. You know, look, I'm Republican. It's no joke. I mean, no secret, right? We're all sitting here on the same panel. But I can be very feminist in a way where I have worked my butt off to be successful. And a lot of women have, so that we can get equal pay and equal rights. And the last thing I want is for my little girl to be canceled because somebody who was born as somebody else is now competing against her in something they're already going to have leverage on because they're a biological boy who's hit puberty. So there's just a lot of factors. And then, you know, look what Jay Slade did. He mentioned the compromise, right, at the unrecorded meeting, conveniently. And then he said, we're going to talk about this with that attorney that you're talking about. I can't stand him. He's so arrogant. And he doesn't abide by the law. I've experienced that with my own child. They say we have to have this meeting 2 meetings from now. Well, so you saw that outcome, right? There had to be, what? How many people you think were at that meeting, guys? At least
a lot. Yeah, I think there were more people at that meeting than there was at the meeting on Tuesday.
Well, so then what happens is the very following meeting, not all those parents go, not all those advocates go, because nobody thinks it's going to be discussed at the very next meeting. Well, what do you know? Jay Slade decides he's going to table the whole topic and say, we're never going to talk about it again. That was deceptive. Everybody should have had the opportunity at that meeting, just like they did the first one. And that's what went wrong in this whole situation to start. Okay. Then you had one Board of Ed member, that Marjorie, who has her boyfriend go on Facebook and call these other Board of Ed members bigots.
Yeah, yeah. So like I guess her partner or whoever went on
Incite
residence. Yeah, it was bad.
everybody to come to this meeting, and
Right.
these 2 Board of Ed members try to secretly add this on the agenda. No, I'm sorry. It was secretly snuck out. It wasn't secretly snuck in. And so good for them if they showed up, if that's what they wanted.
Well,
That's what should have happened in the first place.
well, listen,
That's my
that's. I
18th.
think the board should address that. You know, they can make an official complaint on Marjorie Georgery for leaking that information. But you're right. I mean, everybody's forgetting the girls in this, right? That's what's disturbing to me. Now, did any of you guys, did you sign a waiver of signing your rights away for your daughter? Did you sign a co-parenting waiver with
No,
the
of course
school
not.
district or with the state of New Jersey?
Of course
I mean,
not.
this is. Thank you. I had to get that in there because when you listen to these people talk, it's like parents. There's no parental rights at all. You know,
Right.
it's just they just want to keep coming at parental rights. I mean, you see what's going on in Trenton now, right? They're coming with wave after wave of legislation trying to take rights away from parents. Do you think? I know what your answer could be, but do you think the school district or anyone has a right to talk your child into being sterilized and have sex
No,
change surgeries
absolutely
outside of
not.
your consent?
No,
Absolutely
absolutely not.
not.
I mean,
How
not for
about you,
nothing.
Gene?
If you were actually, you know, an adult and you wanted to go through this transition, guess what? You have to go to a psychiatrist
Right.
right off the bat before you can, you know, there's an X amount of steps you have to take to even be able to the part where you're going to start, you know, taking hormones before you even do anything physically, you know, taking a scalpel to your body, right? So why is this okay when these kids are still developing to do this?
Right.
Whether it's your I don't think it's okay for parents to allow their children to do.
No.
You know, I'm sorry. I think these
Well,
children
listen,
should be fully developed if you're going to be considering something like
Are
that.
we all in agreement? Protecting children has nothing to do with party affiliation. I mean, that's common
Exactly.
sense.
No way.
Absolutely.
No, because I can tell you right now, I know people who are Democrats. I have friends who are Democrats, and like borderline, like some like the people that were there on Tuesday, and they have some of the same beliefs that we have as far as parental rights go. They
Well,
do.
look, let's face it. I was there. You had members of the Old Bridge Democratic Organization there. I mean, they're pushing this stuff on you. You know, what you want to do with your parents is your business. Don't try to deceive other parents because you want to push your ideology on others.
Push the agenda.
Right. It's like with the library books. I mean, what's your feeling in the library books? You have, let's face it, you have books with butt plugs, strap-ons. You have all kinds of pornographic material. But it's interesting. They were speaking about obscenities at the board meeting, but it's okay to have obscenities in the school libraries where young children could be exposed to it. So they talk out of both sides of their mouths. I mean, how do you feel on the books, Carl? What's your opinion?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that some of those books are at our public library. Like, I know for a fact because I looked them up on their website and they were there. I don't know if they're actually in the schools because, to be honest with you, I know a lot of the schools don't even have libraries anymore. Like I know this middle school that my son goes to, they took it out and they put a like an esports thing in there. Like there's no book libraries in there anymore. Again, I don't have kids who go to high school, so I don't know if that's the case in the high school too. But it's ridiculous to even push that on. And I've seen some of these things pushed on like 4th and 5th graders, not in our district, but like I know of other places, and it's crazy. It's crazy to even be talking about those things. You shouldn't even be talking short of like anatomy, just straight anatomy in a health class. You shouldn't be talking about those things until they're in like at least 9th grade, 8th, 9th grade.
Gina?
Yeah, it's sick and twisted, honestly. And a big word that keeps popping into my mind is grooming. You're grooming the children. And then honestly, I feel like once again, it's a slippery slope, and which can lead into a very disturbing path for the kids. And I feel like honestly, it opens a big door to be sexually abused.
Brooke, would you want to comment on the books?
Were you going to say something, Carl?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Carl.
No. Let Brooke finish, and then I'll chime in.
Okay. Look, I mean, I agree with Gina as far as the term grooming. I've had my own experiences as a child, and I was sexually assaulted when I was young. And I could tell you it definitely was a catalyst for me as far as curiosity sexually. I would never want to, I would never want that for my kids. I just, you are in fact planting a seed.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's the intention, whether you realize it or not, that is what's happening. You're planting a seed. A lot of times these people that are culprits that sexually assault people, they're most times victims of sexual assault themselves from their childhood. And so, if people were more open and transparent about stuff like that, maybe they would maybe more of the general public would understand. But, if you're gay, if you're trans, suddenly we're opening these more doors to have these types of conversations at a younger and younger age. And you're in fact grooming them. You're planting a seed, in innocent little minds. I was a big speaker as far as the curriculum when they were trying to introduce this very young. And I was shocked that I got a sidebar email from one of the board of ed members that said I swayed her opinion. And it was simply because I asked her why. And it was the part where I said the age appropriateness of it. Because that is, you're planting a seed. My son still believes in the tooth fairy and Santa Claus. You want to talk about, anal sex, oral sex? Why? Why does my son need to hear? He's not even thinking about that stuff. He's thinking about what he's going to put on his Christmas list for Santa Claus. So that's my take on that. Just the, I mean, I don't think at all, I don't see why it's necessary, but certainly not in the elementary school by any means.
While I was at the board meeting recently, they were introducing these different committees, and Marjorie Georgie chairs the DEI Climate Committee. Now, they like to say, keep your ideology out of our board meetings. Well, what the hell is that? That's ideology. That's Democrat ideology. And she's the same person who voted no to repeal 5756. So she forgets people don't elect activists, they elect representatives. She's up there being an activist. And the same person worried about climate change, she made 130 copies of emails for each board member.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Claiming like, all these emails oppose you guys repealing it.
Yeah, I heard they were duplicating.
Like you said, right.
That's your taxpayer money, by the way.
We're discussing things that really we shouldn't be. You know what the discussion should be? How are we going to address learning loss? What class should be no longer, right? We all should be arguing. Oh, you could say it should be reading, math. Gina could say, it should be science. And Carl could have another opinion, history. That's what should be the priority. Everything coming out of Trenton, the school district, all these radicals, it's everything but how to address it. But as we all know, this is how they address it. They lowered the standards, right? To cover up the learning loss that they didn't want everybody to know. But yet, why was the superintendent worried about dealing with the union to get the schools reopened? Because the union, let's face it, the unions were in no hurry, as we know. We went through it to get the schools reopened. But instead of that, we're worrying about a freaking DEI climate committee. And what is
it's all Tammy Murphy, by the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, it's no accident. I think a few weeks before the last meeting, why was it once again leaked to the media that Albridge didn't repeal 5756? Who was looking for money from Phil Murphy, right? Extra money for the board, maybe the school district, maybe by bragging. Oh yeah, we're behind you, Phil. So when I hear about all this ideology and criticizing concerned parents, once again we fall back into, let's intimidate parents by using the law, or since he lied, as we know, it was policy. The NJEA running commercials, right? Concerned parents are extremists, domestic terrorists, MAGA.
Board of Education candidates calling us extremists on social media.
bigots,
singling out parents, and I'm not afraid to say it.
cult members.
Yeah, and then during the election, one of the candidates, Pete Hunt, decided to fat shame me and call me an extremist on his page. He then tried the night before the election. He then tried to say I never said that, and then I posted all the screenshots on all these pages, and I'm like, really? You didn't say that? Here it is, right here. Here are your words. And sure enough, he didn't win.
Yeah, and then that particular person also, he's so unprofessional. He should have never been even a candidate. But
no,
if anybody said they don't support the union, the teachers union, he automatically labeled you, and would broadcast it that you hate teachers.
Okay,
yeah.
so
couldn't be further from the truth.
That's another thing too.
That couldn't be further from the truth.
That's a great segue, because I forgot about that too. All the comments underneath that when he fat shamed me. Kim Castaigne, she's another candidate for the Board of Ed, who said that I hate teachers. Right. If she really knew me, I actually went to school to be a teacher. I changed my career, but I have nothing but respect for teachers.
Well, Brooke, I'm glad you brought that up, because let's put this to rest right now. The NJEA is no longer a labor union. They're a political action committee. Okay. And so when I criticize the union, has nothing to do with the teachers, because we all know there's good teachers. But the Democrats around the state like to put a spin on it. Oh, they're anti-teacher, which is the furthest thing from the truth.
Nope.
Anti-union. They're not a union no more. I just want to remind everybody, 2019, they put out a statement when they were exposed. The NJEA was exposed for giving over $2 million to a dark money group that operates for Phil Murphy, New Direction, New Jersey. But as we all know, we're going in the wrong direction. The NJEA put out a statement that we are committed to advancing Phil Murphy's agenda on public education. Okay. And we all know, we're all seeing what that agenda is, right? It's a radical agenda that targets children and concerned parents. And what do they want to do? Cancel concerned parents. Launch these woke attacks through social media, attempting to intimidate all parents who show up to these meetings. It's like anything. They go through cycles. First, it was to fund the police. Everybody's a racist. Now we have all these concerned parents of domestic terrorists because they go to board meetings and they stand up for their children. I mean, who would ever thought would be dealing with this right now? But as all three of you have said, no one's prioritizing making up for the learning loss. And like Brooke said, the mental health crisis that was created by the isolation is not being addressed. It's point the finger at everybody else. So I don't know. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. They'll say we have a mental health crisis. Well, then the parents should be involved.
Right.
I'm sorry. If Johnny thinks he's going to be Jenny, a parent should be called. That's a psychological issue. You need to see psychiatrists. I know people out there who think it's wrong, but that's just a fact. That's a mental health crisis. If you're not comfortable who you are, you need help, and the parent should be involved. Okay, I want to get into, do you feel schools are responsible for the spiritual and moral development of your child? Obviously, they think they are with their policies. How do you feel about it, Carl?
If you're talking strictly about religion,
I'm talking about everything overall, development pertaining to 57, 56. I'm talking everything that's going on right now, that's going on statewide.
They should not be responsible. Like, especially, teachers aren't psychiatrists. Teachers don't go through that type of training to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist. They're there to teach, and they're there to develop these young minds. They're there to not in an ideology sort of way, in an academic and a critical. They should be in a critical thinking sort of way as well. Like I know these kids, they don't critical think at all. Like I see it in the college level. They just regurgitate. They don't critical think. They don't. And if they do critical think, and it's not what they, it's not the right ideology, they get shunned for it and they get in trouble. And but teachers should be, nourishing young minds with academics and critical thinking.
Thinking outside the box.
Yes. Thinking outside the box.
Brooke?
As far as the religious part, I mean, look, I do agree with people saying it should be a separate issue because, for like religion and the state, because that is the way it's supposed to be. That never is how it is in politics, as you know, but with the school, I mean, we have so many blends, and so you can't impose one religious belief on the whole crowd. However, as far as morals, I mean, that shouldn't be a religious stance. I mean, it's just right from wrong, and what you want your kids to be as wholesome as possible. You want them to stay innocent for as long as you possibly can preserve that. And that's just using, common sense. These people came into this to work with children, and not only that, but when we're talking about school closures, right? How many times would you see all over social media, we're not babysitters? Would be the stance from the teachers union, right? We're not babysitters. Well, you know what? You're not my kid's parents either. How dare you think that it's your say on what my kid should and shouldn't know about in terms of really personal issues that should not involve school? Let's just stick to the basics, And, that doesn't mean your kids are going to have bad days. I've gone to school and I've had favorite teachers where I have vented about my home life, and sometimes you need that. Sometimes you have a second person to run to, that's nice. My daughter had that, her HIB counselor. She absolutely loved her, but I was aware of that. I was aware of that interaction, so that my daughter knew she had someone to talk to at school. It wasn't a big secret from mom. So that's it just doesn't make any sense. Everything is just like such a contradiction where, we're not babysitters, we're not getting involved, but now they want to be overly involved once the kids are back.
A lot of parents have been asking me, I want to ask you this. Do you feel 5756 is deliberately targeting a child's innocence, trying to take it away? How do you feel on that call?
I think yes. Yes, the short answer of that is yes. The long answer is more of, if you look at it in a larger world, they just want control of your kids. Period. That's all it is. From cradle to grave, they want control of you. And this is the way that they do it, because they know that, parents will have to like deprogram them when they come home from school, when they say, oh, I'll talk about this and that. And they're like, no, that's not how it is. This is how it really is. But yeah, the short answer is yes on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. It's the government trying to stick their nose where it's not their scope. It's our job. We give birth to these children. We raise them. Let us continue raising our children in the way we believe that they should be raised, whether that's, with religion as a background. And honestly, yeah, I send my kid to private school because I took him out of the public school because after the whole school closures and everything, I was just disgusted about how everything was handled. And I felt good about doing that. I still feel good about doing that. And honestly, with the way things are going, I want to continue to keep my child in private school because the way that things are going, it's a downward spiral and it's disgusting.
And they will never stop.
Right, exactly. I feel like every day there's something new that us parents have to try and fight, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and you get these wise guys. There's this one woman on Facebook, Kate T, who loves to use her fake name, and we know her name, but I'm not going to say it here, and her her face and stuff like that. But she'll go and she'll troll all these parents and stuff and say, oh, well, this has been a thing for 7+ years, as if we're uneducated. Or people will say that also at the Board of Ed meetings. Well, you didn't care all this time. Well, and here's where it's different. And I've said this before to, these guys is, okay, Gina, how old's your oldest kid?
He's going to be 9.
How old's your oldest kid, Carl?
12.
Right. So my youngest is 10. My oldest is 21. So it doesn't matter that it's only been, that it's been around that long. These are young children, parents coming to these meetings who weren't even aware of this, who became more aware of things because of COVID and the school closures. So, once we realized that the entire control as far as opening and closing was solely based on the opinion of the teachers union, and they had full control of what was going on, of course, then more parents started participating. Then they wanted to know more things, and more came out. So I'm sorry, but if you don't like that parents are participating now, that's just too bad.
Yeah.
You guys opened that door when you did these closures really prematurely, unnecessarily, watching other townships do it. I loved Frank Weber all the time for challenging this with that board. And I used to challenge him. I used to say to the superintendent, you're never going to keep that out of the schools. You're never going to keep COVID out of the schools. And he kept disagreeing. And I beg to differ. Well, you know what? When we finally opened, it was in the schools almost immediately and all the time. And they figured it out. Imagine that. So they could have done that the whole time.
Well, remember
And,
when they were masking your kid up and then they marched them out the curb to sit down and eat their snack? How was that? How was that healthy?
Oh, please. And the teachers union. The teachers union president had a huge fit about when their masks would fall off, and we called our children Petri dishes.
Yeah.
I mean, really, do they even like children? They say we hate teachers. No, I think that those particular union board members hate children.
And a lot of teachers feel the way we feel. Like, like
right,
it or not, to the other side.
That's the position.
Yeah, like it or not. I mean, this is not about the teachers. Teachers
right,
on the ground.
Nothing at all. I love the teachers. Yeah. They're essential.
Yes. Listen, I feel for the teachers because being retired law enforcement, you become they want you to be a marriage counselor, psychiatrist, all these different. You want to wear all these different hats.
They don't get paid enough for what they do.
But that's what they're doing to the teachers now, right? They want them to wear all these different hats.
Yeah.
Instead of just concentrating on educating, and the union is complicit in it because they're doing the bidding for Phil Murphy. That's why I call them a political action committee. The NJEA has become an arm for the Democratic Party, and that's a fact.
Just and whose call? Sorry to cut you off, but whose call was it to lower the standards on the testing for teachers?
Right, Phil Murphy.
And also
implicit with the union.
Right, and they also want to know why there's a teacher shortage. Well, you're forcing these teachers to get into political agendas. And many of them are common sense people who don't want to be involved and don't want to be put in the middle, but yet you're doing it and you're not giving them more pay. There's no benefits to anything. And just the environment is becoming so hostile.
I mean, listen, they're being forced to push things on people's children and you're dealing with hostile parents. So, listen, it's stressful right now because politics have really taken over the curriculum. Right? What do we see? CRT, DEI, the sex curriculum. I mean, every time you turn around, there's something else coming down the pike. But the thing disturbing is that you have Phil Murphy, a grown man, governor, elected official, calling other grown men to have meetings, some of whom think they're women, by the way, and coming up with policy to target parental rights and people's children. That's beyond politics. I'm sorry. Those are people with issues. Phil Murphy has issues. If you're sitting in a room with people talking about this, that you have issues. I don't know how you feel about that. Feel free to chime in on it, but I feel when grown men are doing that, there's something wrong.
Yeah, and and shame on the Republicans in the state Senate and the state House for not fighting back as strong as they should. I mean, they most of them, not all of them, but most of them go in lockstep with him and with the Democrats, and it's a real shame. I mean, you look, there's a law on the floor now. They want to lower the voting age in New Jersey to 16 so that they can vote only in school board elections, not in any other races, not governor, not president, nothing like that, only for school board races. That's it.
You bring up the school board race.
Mm-hmm.
The state school board, as you know, are political hacks appointed by Phil Murphy. I mean, how do you guys feel the fact that an unelected board is attempting to dictate policy to your local elected board because you had two people from that board removed by Phil Murphy who opposed 5756. So I want you to think about this and comment. How do you feel about that? That you're, people who you went and exercise your right to vote, you want on that board is now being one policy dictated to by unelected boards. How do you feel about that, Paul?
I mean, they should not. I mean, I feel terrible about that one, but they should not be implementing any policies. They could recommend policies all they want till they're blue in the face, and our assembly and Senate should vote on it. But they should not be implementing. It should not be their job to implement a policy at all. Like they could, like I said, they can make recommendations. Then they'll have the full Senate and the full assembly vote for it. That's how I feel about it.
Gina?
Yeah, so I had actually spoken to someone else on her radio show. So I already have something written up. It just basically says that that Governor Murphy is only replacing the 4 members who voted no on the controversial and age-inappropriate sex ed learning standards in June of 2020 and the managing equity and equality in education policy in August of 23. So the entire nomination process was nothing more than a retaliatory executive action to punish the only board members who insisted the concerns of parents be heard, respected, and addressed. And Murphy nominated Mary Bennett to replace Mary Beth Ghazi because of her pro-parent voting record. And Mary Bennett was released from the State Judiciary Committee on December 8th, 23, but without their recommendation. So there was many troubling parts of her testimony and her resume that made the majority of the members of the State Judiciary Committee to withhold their support. However, Mary Bennett will now be able to receive a vote in the full Senate for her confirmation. If Mary Bennett is approved by the state Senate, it will send a chilling message to the remaining NJ State Board of Education members that if they do not vote for the governor's agenda, they too will be replaced. So it's the truth is in the pudding, or what do they call it? The proof is in the pudding.
Right.
I mean, that says it right there. It's just politics, and it's one-sided, and it's disgusting, and it's obviously anti-parent.
Brooke?
That's why I said Gina's like she's just the VIP of this stuff. I mean, she really knows her statistics. She does her homework. She does her research. I love when she posts things because she's just so informative and informed. And so, I mean, I agree with her and Carl, 100%. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, a lot of this is political, right? You got these Board of Ed members that are like, oh, politically free Obridge, but are endorsed by the teachers union because they are definitely going to go along with whatever the teachers union says to do. And the teachers union, I mean, we've seen text messages. They blast out text messages and tell their members who to vote for. And obviously they're not comfortable with it because the members are then sharing those text messages with the general public. So don't tell me none of this is political.
Well,
And it's not working either.
Right.
Thanks for walking me right into my next question I was going to ask you guys about the NJEA trying to influence local school boards to pass Phil Murphy's ideology. I mean,
it's disgraceful.
So I guess I mean, it's good for them, but it's not good for, I saw Andrew Lewis put out a statement, attacking that the Republican Party supported local candidates. In the meantime, they were endorsing candidates who were about their ideology. So it's okay for the NJEA, but the moment, since they've made it party, the moment the Republican Party supports candidates, everybody's the boogeyman all of a sudden. We're all bad people.
Yeah.
Because you can't exercise your right to support your candidate. And listen, anyone who tells you that they're an independent candidate and is endorsed by the NJEA is lying to the community. Okay, we need to stop that.
Yeah.
Okay, you do not get their endorsement if you don't support Bill Murphy and the radical ideology and his agenda for public education. So I hope everyone out there realizes that. And you're seeing it now, right? Elections have consequences. Okay, when seeing that statewide, you're seeing it nationwide. I mean, Phil Murphy is a disaster. He has been nonstop targeting parents, targeting children. And listen, he even used He used his attorney general to sue school districts with taxpayer money to intimidate parents. Thank God those school districts went into court, because that's how it was exposed that he couldn't make this out to be a law. It was policy. As we know, policy isn't the law.
Correct.
And you can even say we have had board members, right? You've had board members who tried to sell it like it was the law. We couldn't take action against it. I want to ask you about female sports and these transgenders that want to participate. I have a zero tolerance for it. It's I'm against it. Listen, if you're a boy and you can't compete against other boys, I'm sorry. You can't retire from a male sport and decide you want to become a female. I mean, I see swimming records dropping all over the country. We had in New Jersey, up, at Ramapo College recently. There has to be a point where, they're called women's sports. We have Title IX. I mean, we had people step to the podium the other night and rewrite Title IX at the podium, literally. Everybody's trying to put a spin on everything. When did it become okay to target girls, young women? Now, as parents, I mean, how would you feel about seeing your daughter compete against a boy?
I would pull my daughters. I have 2 daughters. They would be pulled out of that sport immediately, and they would not play, because I've seen what's going on with, like, there was I think last week even, there was a basketball game where they had to forfeit because the trans player injured 2 girls and they didn't have enough players to play. So they forfeited. I mean, and I've been a coach of youth sports as well. And I can tell you that I would not want to have that liability of my players and parents down my throat get mad at me because we played in a game where there were trans players and they got severely hurt. I mean, it's not about the ideology and the fact that you're trans. It's the fact that you're a biological male for the most part, post-pubescent for the most part. I mean, it's a little different when you're younger because, like I said, my daughters, when they're little, they're playing with the boys in soccer, but there comes a point where puberty hits and things change and injuries happen, and it can be dangerous for these girls, extremely dangerous.
Yeah, so it's not fair, it's not right. As Brooke has already stated, we've come such a far way in being women to fight for certain rights and everything. And this whole, trans coming into sports is taking that away. It's stripping everything that women have worked so hard for. And it's like, what message does that send to these biological girls that, oh, here's a man-made girl and she's going to win against you because she has an upper hand? It's disgusting. It's not safe. It's just ridiculous. And honestly, like, I have nothing against like trans or anything like that. As Brooke has already said, be who you want to be, love who you want to love. But in the same point, that doesn't say to tear down other people and to hurt other people, physically hurt other people. And honestly, just they should have their own league, I guess, if you want to, do that and go that route, because then at least it's safety coming into play. That's what should be number one.
Brooke?
I agree with both of them. And like I said, to Gina's point, just reiterating, don't cancel girls. We worked hard to get where we're at. And, I'm proud to be where I'm at, and I hate to say it this way because I'm not a sexist person at all, but I mean, we work this way. We don't want any men telling us what we can and can't do. And essentially that's what's starting to happen again. They don't identify as men, but that is kind of what's happening now. And yeah, absolutely. I would yank my kids too. I would go to a different league or something like that. I do think that opens a door for big liability problems. I mean, biological men are in fact, bigger, stronger, extra rib, bigger back muscles, faster. And I mean, I grew up a competitive swimmer my whole life. I would be furious because I was one of the strongest swimmers in my class. And I'd be furious if it was, anything but a biological female, trying to take me down. And one of my favorite Republicans is Caitlyn Jenner. And I think she speaks very well on this topic. And if anybody could talk about it, it would be her, right? But she, if you follow her and you talk and you listen to what she talks about as far as like the swimming and the Olympics and stuff like that, she has said, there should no biological boy that has reached puberty should be competing, in women's sports, and that there should be either some kind of guidelines or a separate team altogether. And I agree with that. I think, that's heading somewhere in the right direction. I'm all for compromise. I mean, I'm not trying to shame anybody. I just want to stay me and, and empower women. That's really what it comes down to. You don't see anybody complaining that transgender boys, can't play with other boys, right? Because biological women are in fact physically weaker than, men. So you never hear about that. So I think, we just want to empower other women and stay in our lane.
Well, since the local Democratic Party wants to make everything political, my comment on this is going to be real simple. Where the hell is the Democratic Party who claim to be the party of women? Where's the Me Too movement? They've totally abandoned young girls,
right,
young women. If anything, this should be denounced. You're discouraging young girls and young women from participating in sports. Brooke, you were a swimmer. I was going to make a reference to that. The commitment to becoming a competitive swimmer, the early hours in the pool. I have a friend of mine who has daughters who swim competitively. I mean, competitions, 8 to 12 hours at competitions, and to have that all taken away because, let's face it, some boy can't compete with other boys, so now he hides behind this transgender stuff to dominate a sport. It just should be unacceptable. I mean, we see that. I don't even want to mention his name. The one transgender swimmer recently trying to sneak in a lawsuit to Canada, to the Canadian courts to get in the Olympics. I mean, this is just insanity. What's going on, and to me, it's degrading to women.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you said, Gina, women work so hard to get where you're at. You're Title IX. You look at the WNBA. Female college basketball has come such a long way with such great athletes. And you got to ask, if it continues in this direction, how many records are going to fall? I mean, then we get into scholarships, right? All these transgenders going to start taking an opportunity away from young girls to go to college on an athletic scholarship where they don't have to pay for school. I mean, there's so many levels in this, and unfortunately, you have the Democratic Party are just obsessed with this ideology, and party politics is coming before these young girls and young women. But I just want to wrap this up. And I think it's important because your 3 parents who've been out there, send them. What would you say to parents who are afraid to get engaged because they're worried about getting canceled, because of the woke? I mean, give them a message before we go. Let them know what you think.
Have no fear. I'm learning that, and I used to be pretty worried about things. And yes, I have a family that I have to worry about, but. And and in my job too, you can't have fear. You can't have fear with these people. These people, a lot of them, when push comes to shove, and you confront them in real life instead of on a computer, they cower. All of them. Especially in this town, all of them. They run their mouths. They talk about things, and they cower. And and some of them will call you out, and certain people are inviting me to breakfast and things like that. But I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to waste my time with that person because it's just going to turn into a shouting match, and I don't want that. But my advice to the parents who are afraid to say anything, afraid to stand up, go to these Board of Ed meetings, get involved. There are people like you in this town. You can see it in the election results. There's tons of us. It's a small group that are just causing problems.
Gina?
I definitely love what Carl said. Just stand tall, stand your ground. Don't let fear overcome your convictions, what you believe in. Don't let them force you to cower and hide. You have to, just like I said, stand tall. And even, I'm not saying, go up and speak at the podiums, because that's a big leap. That's a big step. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. But you could send an email to the board of your thoughts and your feelings or whatever, and nobody has to know. But what's important here is your children. Stand up for your children. Okay? Yeah, they need you. So,
Brooke?
Just basically what you allow will continue. So in other words, if you don't say anything, nothing's going to change. And I'm always open to hearing everybody's perspective. Just do it respectfully. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, we can, have a back and forth conversation. But be an adult, act your age, and understand that we all parent differently. And, sometimes we have to meet in the middle. Everything is not entirely black and white. And if you're afraid to go, I know I am a terrible public speaker. I go to those meetings and I do talk at times, but you'll hear me crackling my voice. I can't stand talking in front of a crowd. But I'll do it because when it comes to my kids, I'm not settling. And, like I said, if nothing changes, nothing changes. You got to speak up. At the very least, participate, listen in, join these groups. And read the articles too. Don't just, if you go on Facebook and by what all these people were going by a couple days ago, trying to strike this meeting, you'd go nuts. Don't listen to necessarily what everyone has to say, but do your research, participate in the meetings. And if you're afraid to speak up, at the very least, send those emails in. The Board of Ed members, all of them are on the Old Bridge website, and you can email every single one of them, and you should absolutely participate and don't be afraid to speak out.
Well, thanks for joining me. And I want to close by saying the group that was at that meeting who claimed to be so loving and accepting is anything but. I think what went on there inside and outside was a disgrace. I mean, they were telling the police outside, F you pig, and honking their horns at them, trying to incite them. But the cops are extremely professional, and kudos to them. And once again, the argument's real simple. If you have to deceive and obstruct parents from getting information, that means it's not good for your child. It's common sense, and you have a right to go to a board meeting. You pay taxes. It seems to me there was a major effort led by Jodry's significant other, whatever, however she wants to refer to the person she lives with, to incite the mob. And it was okay for them to bring outsiders in, but the moment parents brought friends and family there, they didn't want to hear about it, and they made a concerted effort to get people ejected. I mean, we had one unhinged woman from town pointing and threatening at a board member. I would suggest to that person, spend a little more time on personal hygiene when you're going to be in close quarters with people. Have some self-respect and respect for others. Stinking like a farm animal is not a good thing. But, yeah, I am annoyed with the way they were attacked because everybody had their right to their opinion. And it seems like the people who support 5756 doesn't want to hear from the parents or anyone who wants to come there and defend the parents. And we saw that. But as always, we always end it, stay informed, give us some feedback. I really hope you listen to Brooke, Gina, and Carl, to those parents out there, and get involved. And as always, till next time, God bless America, and we'll see you at the next podcast. And as always, remember to subscribe and share.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on, guys. You guys are great. Carl never hold back. Well, Gina, I know you would never hold back.